This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. There are agendas available in the file pockets near the entrance or online on the City of Waterville's website. All items appearing on the consent agenda are voted on in one motion and vote. Generally, these items are routine in nature and do not require discussion. All items listed under unfinished business or new business are voted on separately. First, councilors will be given an opportunity for questions or comments. Once all councilors have had an opportunity to speak, citizens will also be given an opportunity for comments or questions. Citizens must speak at the podium and identify themselves. Each citizen will be allowed one opportunity to speak and will be limited to 3 minutes. Finally, councilors will be given another opportunity to speak or comment. Citizens who would like to speak on a topic that does not appear on tonight's agenda will have an opportunity to do so at the end of the meeting under the public comments section of the agenda. I'm going to go to the Pledge of Allegiance next.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Label. All right, I'm going to read a couple of proclamations before we get started.
Conflict of interest.
Huh? Oh, conflict of interest. Anybody got a conflict of interest before we get started? Seeing none, I'm going to move on. In recognition of Martial Arts Day 2022, martial arts provide a powerful foundation for emotional development and success skills that last a lifetime. And whereas the participation in martial arts builds strength, character, focus, flexibility, and coordination while enhancing the performance in other sports in the workplace, at home, and in school. And whereas martial arts enhance self-goals, setting abilities, anger management, and the skills of nonviolent conflict resolution in people of all ages, helping them to become more productive and healthy people. And whereas the 40th Battle of the Maine Martial Arts Championship will take place on March 28th and will benefit the Northern Lights Eastern Maine Medical Center, our local Children's Miracle Network Hospital. Now therefore, I, Jay Coelho, as Mayor of Waterville, Maine, on behalf of the City Council and the residents of Waterville, do hereby proclaim March 28th, 2022 as Martial Arts Day. And witness whereof I do hereby set my hand and seal to the stand. Oh, it's done.
Okay,
Martial arts, the Hewards, dude, they do a lot of good work.
they do.
My family's fantastic. Mike's a sci-fi author. He's pretty good. I don't know if anybody ever read his books, but you should. Second Mayoral Proclamation in recognition of International Women's Day 2022. Whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historical contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas American women have played and continue to play a critical economic, cultural, and social role in every sphere of life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of labor force working inside and outside of the home, and whereas American women have played a unique role throughout the history of the nation by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation, and whereas American women were particularly important in the establishments of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation, and whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement. And whereas American women have served our country courageously in the military, and whereas American women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, especially the peace movement, which create a more fair and just society for all. And whereas despite these contributions, the role of American women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jay Coelho, as Mayor of Waterville, Maine, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby acknowledge that Tuesday, March 8th, 2022, as International Women's Day, and urge all members of our community to recognize this observance. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I would. Is my mic on?
It is now. Nope.
Nope.
There you go.
So
Now it's
I just want to thank you for recognizing the importance of International Women's Day. And I can't help but notice that, or remember that this holiday has its history in women's efforts in Europe to promote peace. And so it's, again, I think the situation in Ukraine is on a lot of our minds right now. And I'd just like to take a moment to express solidarity with all the people of Ukraine as they struggle against this Russian invasion, and urge the citizens of Waterville to join the widespread protest against this unprovoked attack on the freedom of a sovereign nation. Thank you.
And we all know how I am about sovereignty.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Consent agenda.
Make a motion?
Second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
Counselor DeBrito,
You're muted.
You're on mute.
She's probably not even there.
She's offline.
Counselor
Okay.
Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes?
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Clepak's got the most emphatic yeses.
He does.
Old business, Resolution 33, 2022.
Make a motion to read the entire agenda by title only?
Second.
Can I get a roll call?
Counselor Morris,
Yes.
is Counselor DeBrito back?
No.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor McCormick.
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right. Again, Resolution 33, 2022.
Establish a Waterville Historic
Is it
Preservation.
chat option
Move to
here?
adopt?
Second.
Okay.
I got a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think there's been some talk of possibly postponing this again until we have a more concrete charge for the committee. But I think it's important that we just at least have a conversation about the merits of this resolution, and actually the other two ordinances, 34 and 5. So I'd just like to start the conversation about this new committee. This would look at historic buildings in the city and identify those, some that are already identified, and identify others that should be protected from changes to their character. So I'm just wondering what my fellow councilors think about this.
Councilor Foss.
So, me and the Madam Chair had a quick conversation about these today, and we agreed, we should at least get this ball rolling a little bit. And, tabling after the discussion to start it is a good first step, draws attention to it so that, the public comes in and brings their ideas to the table too. My anticipation, and could be knocked down, and that's okay, is to have a first vote next meeting. And we still got one more vote after that anyway. So let's get this ball rolling. I've looked through many of it, and I'm pretty hard on keeping the historical significant sites it's the character of Waterville. It's how we've done it. It's how we've always looked. Now that doesn't mean that we aren't ever going to change, because we will, but we need to do something to protect the history that's in Waterville. That being said, though, the only real problem that I see is I don't want to limit future development on these buildings that are going to protect the exterior and some of the interior with business hours. That, to me, may shun away somebody that's going to do a really wonderful thing with a place like Sacred Heart, like Reddington Museum, the Reddington building. That I think can be a case-by-case situation where the public could weigh in. We just had that go-around with Sacred Heart, and it was very important to have that. So that's the only concern I've seen so far through the documents and through the three. And I think if we table one for the sake of time and all that, let's do the discussions and then table all three together as a package so we can bring them all back. So that's about all I got.
Steve, I'm going to go to you, and then I know that we were going to do manager report ahead of time. Can you do both right now?
I just wanted to talk on this topic.
Yep.
This concept of the Historical Preservation Committee, when you look at the adaptive reuse ordinance, the draft of it, it goes beyond just architecture and the historical architecture. It talks about cultural significance, about geographical locations, physical features within the community, so that those things that people recognize as characteristic of Waterville are not forgotten or not lost. And from my point of view, I think that's a very significant thing to be focused on. I agree with the concern that's been expressed about a 90-day delay, possibly in building and electrical permit issuances. But I think that we can work all of that out as the council discusses how this trio of items can come out at the end when you do adopt something. The reason that I would support the postponement of these to March 15th is, as I've written to you, we're working on a framework for the council to create committees. And this would be the first one that's come up since we started working on that framework. And if you give us the opportunity between this and the next meeting, we can put this committee, which I'm viewing as a standing committee because it works along with that ordinance for as long as the ordinance exists. We can put that into a framework that will be consistent over time and will have more significance and definition to it as the council does create committees in the future.
Anyone else? Councilor Foss.
If I may pose a question to the manager. On number 35 with the 90-day thing, is there a reason for that? Because the way I look at the package as a whole, the things that we're considering delaying that permit for are covered, to my knowledge. If you're going to come in and buy a building and it's listed as a historical site, you're not allowed to touch the outside. You got to keep the characteristics of the building intact. Why would we want to delay permitting for earthwork and stuff like that?
As I understand it, the delay would be in order to consider alternatives that preserve architectural features, as opposed to what somebody might approach the code enforcement department or the planning department with as a renovation of a property that would materially change its architectural character. as an example, let's say that somebody wanted to take one of the buildings listed on this inventory and replace all of the individual pane windows, like the windows that you see in the Hathaway Center, wanted to replace those with just plain plate glass windows. That will materially change the architectural character of that building. And the delay then would be to work out with the owner or whoever was going to do the, finance the work, work out with them an alternative that would either not be a change to the appearance of the building or would be some compromise that wouldn't have as drastic a change to it.
Wouldn't that be worked out at the planning board? Or the site plan review?
I would hope so. Yeah.
I just don't want to create more red tape than is necessary, down the road. I'm not opposed to your 90-day. I'm not, and I certainly am not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to understand it so that, we make an informed decision on everything. And I couldn't wrap.
Well, everything that we do, we want to have your input on so that we can rethink what we're proposing to you with your questions in mind and your concerns in mind. So we'll take a really hard look at that and bring it back to you on the 15th with either a strong justification for it or some form of compromise.
Okay.
I'm looking at some of the same things. My first question earlier was, do we even need the committee? Part of the conversation now with the 90 days, if Lockwood Mill project had sit 90 days with the window of opportunity they had to work on, and we're going to be redoing their bond stuff here later, would they even wanted to have considered doing some of the work? And I know they're going to be wanting to replace windows and stuff like that, things we're talking about here now. That's why I question some of the need. I would think that Lockwood project would fall under the historic.
So
Absolutely.
it will for federal grants and stuff like that, but I've always had the issue with 90 days. We've had this discussion a few times in office. That's the one part of this that never really made sense to me. If you go through all the other checks and balances, there's really no need for the 90 days. As for your Lockwood project down there, they've been waiting on that project for much more than 90 days. When you're working on
Yes.
something that's that big, 90 days really isn't much to you. You're already, that's years in the making. That's not an overnight thing. We're talking more about a old church or something where it's a one-off building, like the church there that we were, Sacred Heart. Those are the sorts of buildings that you're going to be looking at. I think the 90 days is overkill. I think the rest of it looks good. I think having a committee, are you going to go do the work? Are you going to drive around town and find these buildings? No. Then you want a committee that's going to report to you and give you that sort of information.
Do we want the committee to report to us, or do we want them to report to the planning board?
All
and then the
committees
planning board.
All committees report to the city council.
Okay.
They're your committees. They're meant to hash out a lot of the stuff before it gets to you so that you're looking at good vetted information, or you would just be spinning your wheels. Committees have a huge role in what we do as a city. So they are underutilized, some of them. Some we give more weight to than we should. However, at the end of the day, no matter what a committee does, they are making recommendations to you, and then you make the final say. Anyone else? All right, so we're not going to vote on this. Is somebody tabling this? Or, I'm sorry, do you have one more thing?
Well, yeah, I guess I would just add that in my view, the one thing that we really do need here is the committee, because obviously there are a lot of issues here that we need more time to think about, and we're going to need, and they're going to come up in the future. So I'm in favor of tabling until we have a more concrete charge. And I like the idea of establishing it as a standing committee. And then maybe one of its primary jobs, aside from identifying this buildings of historical importance, should be to look at that ordinance, the adaptive use ordinance, and really flesh it out a little bit more.
So is that a motion to table
So
till
it's a
the
motion
March
to table.
15th? And
On-
all three resolutions?
Yes,
Okay. then I'll
Second.
second.
together.
I'd just like to say that if you're if it sounds like the historical committee looks like it's going to happen anyway, at some point, if you are a person that thinks you might want to be on this committee, do not wait until we form the committee to start applying. Start sending in your applications so that we have them, so that we can get this going. And that's it. Pat, can I get a roll call? I almost said Patty.
Sarah.
Sarah.
Can I get a second first?
Already did.
Okay. Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor DeBrita? No. Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes,
Counselor Foss?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, so I'm going to move on to ordinance 59, 2022.
Amend the zoning ordinance.
Yep.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, before you move on, I would encourage all of the counselors, including yourself, to reach out and offer your comments on these three items that you just tabled between now and the next meeting, so that we aren't trying to answer questions on our feet that we don't anticipate at the next meeting.
10-4.
Absolutely. right,
Amend
well-
the zoning ordinance off College Avenue.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Steve?
Mr. Mayor, just quickly for the benefit of the public watching, this is a rezoning of the spaces behind the new commercial C1 zone on College Avenue. They were orphaned by the creation of this new zoning district, and this amendment to the zoning ordinance would fold them into the residential zoning district behind the properties that front on College Avenue.
Thank you, Steve. All right, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
yes,
Counselor Foss?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Moving on to ordinance 60, 2022.
Amend the zoning ordinance 20 and 24 North Street.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? This is just the stuff for
Where about?
Ware Butler?
Yes.
All right. Can I get a roll call, please?
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
yes,
Counselor Foss?
You need some
Yes.
tea and honey.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, new business. Order 66, 2022.
Amend Order 227-2021, reissuance of a general obligation bond.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Steve, you want to lead us into this?
Just briefly, this
Save
is
you some money.
the previously authorized issuance of a bond for $5.287 million to reduce that just below $5 million, so that we have a 36-month window in which to expend the proceeds by IRS rules instead of an 18-month window if the bond exceeded $5 million. That will give time to finish all the projects that we have listed for completion under this bond.
I'd just like to say that I love bonding for less. I'm just saying.
That's what I'm talking about.
Just saying.
It made sense. We talked about it in the finance committee. Claude had some comments. Mike had some. We tossed this around a little bit. We asked finance director a lot of questions. We asked a lot of questions when it came to this, but we had some of the money to do some of these projects on our own without bonding. And it really does make sense for us not to tie our hands to an 18-month deadline. At least this way it gives us 3 years to sort of get that money expended and the projects done without having the IRS knocking on our door.
And if I may, the two items that we took off the capital improvement program list that the bond was going to fund are the street sweeper for Public Works, which would be their second street, replacement of their second street sweeper. I'm told by the Public Works Director that the sweeper that we have is serviceable for another year, possibly 2 years. So that's $200,000 we were able to take off that 5.287 million. And the police chief informed me that it's been the historical practice of the city to pay cash for the police cars. So we took the police cars out. That is $107,000, I believe, and that will be coming back to you at the next meeting to pay for that out of the fund balance.
See the work we've done in the last 2 years?
Being a motorcycle rider, I would bond as many street sweepers as you guys needed.
And
but I'm
streets.
just saying.
And streets.
Just saying.
Don't forget during
We-
budget season, we need more streets.
We wait for the street sweepers to come out to say, there it is, there's spring.
Yes, we want to know spring is here ahead of time. All right, any other discussion? Sarah, can I get a roll call?
Counselor Morris?
Yes.
Counselor Klepak?
Yes.
Counselor Green?
Yes.
Counselor Foss?
Yes.
Counselor Frankie?
Yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, moving on to public comments. Sarah, do I have anybody with their hand up out there?
Negative.
All right, I'm going to move to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First thing I want to inform everybody of is that the Lockwood Mill project has stalled for lack of financing as a result of the substantial increase in building materials and construction costs due to the COVID pandemic. The organization that's doing the renovation has indicated that they expect to have their financing package put together in early 2023, which is a year from now. The fallout from that, unfortunately, is that the CDBG grant of $450,000 that the city assisted in processing for that project has now been withdrawn. The approval of that has been, the award of that has been withdrawn according to HUD rules that require the grant to be offered and received within 3 years of the time that it's been offered. That deadline is upon us, and because of this 1 year delay in starting the project, the state has rescinded that award. They are eager to invite the Lockwood Mill project to apply again in 2023, and I suspect with that kind of enthusiasm that they will get a grant of similar size. The project has also applied to for $1 million in the ARPA funding that's available through the county to assist with their financing package. One thing that I would recommend that the city do is attempt to lock arms with the Lockwood project in its application for the grant funding from the county, and certainly for the CDBG funding if it comes to that in a year. But in the process of locking arms with the project for the county funding, I would suggest that we try to increase that amount by what was lost through the cancellation of the CDBG grant, so that the application to the county would be roughly $1.5 million. So with your blessing or without any objection, I would like to approach them about doing that.
We can find the money. You guys?
Okay,
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll see what we can do. Moving on to their neighbor, the Taconic Bridge. MDOT has responded to Winslow's request that they consider closing the bridge for 2 years and routing traffic around detours through Fairfield and over the Carter Bridge south of the Taconic Bridge. Their response has been that the closing off the bridge entirely would not substantially reduce the amount of time that it will take to replace the bridge. And that has to do with the transfer of utilities and scheduling with the utility companies that are involved. So what they've proposed as an alternative is to limit the bridge to 2 lanes of traffic eastbound coming from Waterville into Winslow, and that all of the westbound traffic from Winslow to Waterville would be rerouted or detoured over the Carter Bridge. So there would be somewhat of a circular pattern created. And I think that that's a pretty good compromise. We'll be meeting with them this week, or I think next week, to talk this over and to talk about some of the details about design.
Councilor Frankie.
I'd just like to point out, Steve, that it's not a compromise from the Department of Transportation. That was originally what they had proposed. They obviously have ignored Winslow. I went to the public meeting, so-called public meeting, which was just a video presentation. And I sent in a comment for that. I said, if it's only 2 years, why just close it, get it all done with? They made the same response. We've already made up our mind, which is what the Department of Transportation does.
I stand corrected then. My understanding was that they had a traffic management plan that was going to have traffic signals on both ends of the bridge, and that they were going to allow traffic to move back and forth in both directions.
No, that was not part of. I don't think that was part of the original plan. That back and forth.
And as I said, I stand corrected.
When it comes to bureaucracy, common sense doesn't usually ring out. Go ahead.
Steve, do you know if DOT is going to do a traffic study between the intersection of KMD and Abenaki? Because that's all 1 lane, depending on direction. That's going to be a mess. I'm not opposed to what they're trying to do. I just want to make sure that we get prepared, Winslow gets prepared, because the lights over on the new bridge on the Carter Memorial are slow on a good day, and if they're going to start pumping a bunch of traffic either way, we're going to have issues on our side. They're going to have issues on their side.
And all the new roads they're putting in the south end are gonna get chewed up.
That's at the intersection on the Winslow side of the river?
Specifically for Waterville is our side of
Oh.
Abenaki, where it intersects KMD Silver Street. That intersection is gonna be a nightmare.
I do not know if they've done a traffic study.
Okay. Can we find?
They plan to widen, I think it's Bay Street,
The widen Bay
at
Street.
the intersection just east of the Carter Bridge. They're going to make a turning lane there to try to ease the traffic flow, or traffic congestion, rather.
My concern is on our side of the bridge at intersection of KMD, so can we find that out if they've done that or not?
Yep, I will.
Awesome, thank you.
You know, for the next 2 years, you'll still at least be able to go home that way.
That's nice.
All right, city manager report, council committees.
Oh, wait, what about the curb relocation?
The what?
Doesn't he have more in his report? Like,
Oh, I don't know. Were you done, Steve? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I want to talk about Main Street. We've had a lot of conversations between the city staff some of the counselors and some of the business owners along Main Street about the apparent narrowness of the future Main Street based on where the curbs have been set. And we took that up with the DOT engineer who heading up that project. And as you recall, we had an idea to move the curbs back 2 to 3 feet in order to widen the street and allow more room for traffic movement and parking, etc. And we were told by MDOT that it would take them probably 4 to 6 months to analyze the impact of doing that. And if they were to approve it, then it would move on from there to the Federal Highway Administration, which they said would take anywhere from 6 to 12 months to review it, analyze it, and render a decision. The result would be that we would see a delay in the conclusion of the project from between 10 to 18 months. And that seems to me to be very unacceptable. So what we did was we asked the state engineer what other municipalities in Maine have gone through this kind of traffic calming approach in their downtowns. And they gave us the names of Portland has done some of it, Hollowell, and I can't remember, we had 1 or 2 other, Augusta, and there was another one that I just can't recall. So the city engineer spoke with those communities and learned from them that the traffic calming approach had a really significant effect, that they see many more pedestrians on the streets, crossing the streets, etc., and that the routes that have been reopened, as Front Street will be and Spring Street will be, for the through traffic are doing just fine as intended, and that the downtown areas have become more shopper-oriented, more diner-oriented, and that the number of accidents that have occurred do not seem to be related to the reconfiguration of the streets. They did tell us that they had to change some of their practices with regard to snow plowing, which is one of our concerns because our large trucks with wing plows, without the wing plows being down, are 13 feet wide. And we would not be able to plow in both directions, or actually in one direction, and have traffic pass in the opposite direction while we're doing Main Street. What these other communities have done is that they've put up control signs that are LED signs that are lit up to prohibit parking on one side of the street or the other side of the street during snowstorms so that the streets can be plowed. That seems like a viable approach. The other thing that they've done is that they've altered the equipment that they use to plow the downtown roads. So they're going to smaller vehicles without wing plows on them, and they can do that very effectively. We can do the same kind of thing. We're not particularly set up to do that at this point, and there's some pretty significant history with the Waterville Public Works Department that they want to do things the way they've always done them. So we're just going to have to take a different look at how we accomplish what needs to get done with regard to snow plowing.
We're gonna put a plow on your truck.
May
Go
I?
ahead. Yeah,
May
go ahead.
I?
Go ahead.
Put
It
a
takes.
plow on my truck? Sure.
No, my truck.
No, on Foster's.
I'll plow when I'm heading
Oh.
for Winslow. So,
Only one side of the road, though.
yeah, the side that's not lit. So, Steve, I've just got to say it out loud. It's redonkulous that it's taking 12 to 18 months to figure out if we can move the curbs back 1 foot on each side. I think that's ridiculous. That
Hey,
being,
you're gonna get to widen Bay Street. There's no parking there.
that being said, for the love of Lord and everything mighty. Okay, so we think about this down the road. We leave it at the 11 and a half foot mark, wherever it is right now. What do we measure? 11 and a half, something like that? It's a
I
tight,
think that I think the travel lanes are 11 feet.
Yeah, it's a tight move. So the other communities, did they have deliveries going on their front street, on their main street?
Yes, and they've handled that through signage,
Okay.
where they have specific zones that are for deliveries only at certain times of the day.
So I think about one of the food delivery trucks that doesn't have, they're not a 40-foot trailer, they're like the 25-foot trailers, 26-foot trailers. Are they coming straight off the street and into the parking spots? Because the way that I see it, and I could be wrong, we don't have that space for that tractor to come clean off the road and be right up against the curb. They don't have enough length in that space. Am I right or wrong in that?
I think you're wrong on that.
Okay.
I believe that the final design doesn't include those bump outs
Mm-hmm.
that create sections of parking.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, I'll double check this, but my observation so far is that the parking spaces, or rather the curb, is just one straight line.
No, sorry, it's not the curb, it's where the actual truck is physically gonna park. Like right now, the UPS shows up and they're halfway out on the road. And that's gonna cause a problem downtown, but that's besides the point. What I'm talking about is something that, a tractor trailer, a short tractor trailer, like, I think it's Cisco Food, it does a delivery. Are we gonna have sections in the painted area where parallel parking is, that's gonna be designated for those tractors to get clean off the road?
No?
Nope.
Okay,
No,
okay.
no, they're not going to be able to get completely off the travel lane.
So that's
because
gonna congest the downtown on a busy day and a busy time during, when they're doing a delivery. So that's why I've been kind of pushing for this is,
Yeah.
it's a foot on either side, and it's gonna take us 12 to 18 months to figure out if we can move the banks back a foot on each side.
Government bureaucracy. Claude's gonna tell us more about it. Claude, go ahead, sir.
Well, I'm just going to say that I agree with you wholeheartedly, Rick. Of course, I'm sure the main thing that you're worried about is the beer truck and not the food delivery truck.
If I was a drinker, maybe, but I'm not, but that's okay.
But the question I had for Steve is, do we know if there's been any impact on the bill grant from the inflation of building materials?
Not that I've been informed of, but I'm sure there has been an effect.
Bought that stuff years ago.
Would you check out and see where we stand on that?
I will.
Councilor Green.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I share the incredulity of the cumbersome of this. But also, I'm wondering, with all the engineers involved on this project, could they, surely the original plan can accommodate the traffic that we're, going to have on the street. Is it just a matter of we're not used to, or we can't, envision a slower moving flow of traffic and less activity on the street? I mean, my hope is that the engineers were right and it is okay, even though it doesn't look like it. But, surely that's what we paid the big bucks for. Smart people who took all that into consideration.
I think that that's a good part of it. Waterville has been, Main Street's been one way since the early 60s, I think it is. So it's been, 50 years, one way, high speed, and I think you're right. I think the people just can't envision that it might be a pedestrian safe space with slow-moving traffic and parking on the sides of the streets. We're told by these other communities that it took a while for people to recognize that was the effect of narrowing the streets and going back to two-way traffic. one of the things that we have learned, and I think Councilor Green was helpful with this by passing on some information. We've learned from other communities outside of Maine that this sort of effective relocation of highway, like Main Street has been, because it's this through road from Upper Main Street to the Taconic Bridge, that's diverting that traffic around these high congestion areas and recreating a more traditional pedestrian-oriented downtown has worked very effectively in other places. I think that the state is not going to move on it. I don't think that they are going to encourage the Federal Highway Administration to do anything with it. And the mold for the future has been cast, and it was cast before any of us were at the table. And I think we're going to benefit from it. We're just going to have to be calm, accept it, and see how it goes.
I think we know how it goes. We all drive by, mainly Brews, those vehicles sticking out. We may have 2 lanes now, all going one direction, but we all know how to. We have an issue with trucks being able to park there before we did any of this work and shortened the amount of space that they had. I agree that less traffic will be on Main Street because it'll be routed to the other streets. I foresee so many people losing their doors on Main Street as cars come down that road. But
Yeah,
we'll see.
and Councilor Green, the reason I'm adamant, being as adamant as I am about this is not that I don't disagree that Main Street's got to slow down, because it will have that effect. At 11 foot, we're going to be scraping mirrors, and it's not literally. You're going to see the cars are going to be closer together. The problem that we have in the downtown is that west side of the Main Street has a lower level. If we were to push all those deliveries to the backside, they don't have elevators to get to the main level of their business, which is why I'm harping on this delivery system, how that's going to play into this. If we take an 18-wheeler down through there and park it on Main Street in the delivery zone, it's still going to probably stick out because they're not going to be able to get that trailer in right up against the curb to sit inside that space. And at 11 feet, we're going to be
Down to 8.
we're going to be down to 8 feet. And now it's really going to cause very short-term problems. But, hey, your delivery guys are going to have to hustle now. They can't hang out and stuff like that. I'm not opposed to any of this. Don't get me wrong. I'm hearing from the business owners downtown that if they have to push their deliveries to the backside, it's really going to be a problem. Now, to Councilor Frankie's question about building materials, being in the middle of a build myself in the last 3 months, dimensional lumber and plywood has gone up 10% in the last 3 months. Metals and stuff like that haven't moved much in either direction, along with plastics and stuff like that. But dimensional lumber and plywood are trending upwards and continue to trend upwards. So
Well, plastic sheep, you should have just 3D printed that.
I'm going to try to 3D print the rest of the house. Yep, I think it's going to be working.
All right. So that was, anything else for your manager's report, Steve?
Let's see. Oh, one thing, kudos to 3 of the cross-country skiers that frequent Quarry Road trails. They've qualified for the Junior Nationals, and that is going to help put Quarry Road on the map and to encourage others to come and recreate at Quarry Road trails. And then finally, we're putting together a regional meeting to discuss forming a home consortium that will open up the doors for federal grant funding for housing in the Central Maine region. The consortium that we're working on would span from Bangor along I-95 all the way to Augusta. We'll have that meeting sometime next month, and hopefully we'll be able to gain access to more federal funding. And then the last thing that I wanted to report on is to introduce Councilor Klepak to give you more details about what's happening with the brown-tail moth issue. Our Public Works Department is going out later this week, I believe, to start inserting the plugs into trees to help mitigate the issue. And Councilor Klepak is saying no, so my information doesn't appear to be up to date. I have.
Are we really brown-tail mothing it? Go ahead, Klepak.
Well, before I talk about your favorite topic, I would just say on the topic of Quarry Road, that Quarry Road already is on the map. I would encourage everyone in Waterville to take pride in and attendance of the Bill Koch Festival that is happening this Saturday and Sunday at Quarry Road, in which there will be close to 550 young people from all of New England and states far beyond in the entire regional culmination of the Nordic ski season is being held right here in Waterville, right at Quarry Road, because it is such a spectacular facility. That's already really on the map. In fact, I would suggest that Quarry Road is the center of the map when it comes to Nordic skiing here in New England. And yes, the excellent skiers that Waterville is pumping out because of the legacy of the last 10 years of the youth ski program at that facility. It's going to establish Waterville as one of the places in the country that excellent skiers are hailing from when you look at down the road at NCAA competitions in that sport. So there's a lot to be proud of in terms of Quarry Road and Nordic skiing. Turn out this weekend if you want to see some really fun times. The Friends of Quarry Road have put together an excellent program for all of our visitors. There's shuttles set up. There's going to be food and tents and prizes and a obstacle course, and there's biathlon happening out there.
Sounds
with,
like I'm gonna go have some fun.
pellet. Yep, a lot of really cool stuff happening this weekend at Quarry Road related to Nordic skiing. So on to the next topic of brown-tail moths. I was shaking my head when Steve was talking about trucks rolling this week to put inserts. That is actually not quite correct. He is close, but he got a little bit sideways there. We're hoping that this week the contracted arborist that the city has retained, Bartlett, will go out and begin manual removal of winter webs on the fruiting and flowering trees on public lands that were identified in the tree inventory. However, the public works employees that will be putting inserts into the trees will be doing that in the last week of March and the first week of April. Because of the timing of the emergence of the insects, it needs to be 7 to 10 days prior to that. And assuming that the weather is more or less predictable, that's actually the right time to do that. And we're preparing for that. We actually sent out to several hundred residents in Waterville today an email detailing for all of those that met the criteria for that treatment. We sent an email out to them preparing them for that. And then we sent a second email out to residents that didn't meet the criteria for the inserts, which are only going to be put in residents' trees that are ornamental, so like large oak trees, maple trees, etc. They can't be used on flowering trees because it kills off the native pollinators. Those kind of trees, like the apple trees, cherry trees, service berry, stuff like that, If residents on private land have that kind of problem on that kind of infestation, the way the city is dealing with that is we have secured extension pole and pruners and pole saws that can be checked out of the public library. I think there's like 5 of them that can be checked out of the public library with your public library card. Tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, myself and Matt Skane from the head of Public Works will be holding a workshop detailing, in more detail than this, detailing what the city is doing to address this problem. And we will be giving residents a little bit of a tutorial on how to identify brown-tail moth on their property, what kind of trees are affected, and telling them how they can check out the pole pruners themselves if they want to do manual removal. Then we'll be going across the street to the Veterans Memorial Park, where there are plenty of brown-tail moth winter webs. And I'll actually be trimming some out of some trees there so residents can see how that can be done safely. We'll be talking about personal protective equipment and then the correct way of disposing of the winter webs to keep themselves safe while handling them. So if you didn't meet the criteria for the inserts, the only way the city can directly help you at the moment is by loaning out the equipment for you to treat these trees manually yourselves, unless you want to contract an arborist separately. But that is tomorrow. If you can't make it at 4 o'clock at the library, it's all going to be outside on the front porch of the library. We won't have to go inside at all. If you can't make that, we're working hard to figure out how we can videotape that session, and then we'll post that video on the city's website so that residents can use that as a reference for, if they need it. And then lastly, I'm giving a talk to a grand rounds talk to the medical faculty at Maine General in Augusta the following day on Thursday, where I'll be going through the biology, the climate trends, and the contemporary research that is associated with brown-tail moths that are looking at ways of tracking it and ways of new, novel, experimental ways of dealing with the problem. I'll be talking about all of that on Thursday and recording that talk as well, and hopefully I'll be able to post that talk on the city's website for any kind of interested residents that want a little bit more thorough description of the scenario.
It's your enthusiasm, Cleepak, that does it for me. That's what sells it.
I'll second that.
And I know most of you don't realize this. Cleepak was just talking about all the stuff Quarry Road does. By the end of his second term, we're all going to be kite skiing on the right down Water Street, kite surfing. It's happening, isn't it, Tom? Any other comments from counselors?
I just have an update from the ARPA committee. We do have a format for applying for the city funds. We haven't quite finalized our procedure for ARPA funds, but for any agencies that serve residents in Waterville and would like to apply for city funds, that will be on the city's website by Friday. And the ARPA committee will be meeting again on Friday, and we will be full steam ahead on the second tier, which is the actual ARPA funds. We ran into some complications because these are federal funds, and but we're very happy to have the new assistant city manager assisting us, and I think with his guidance we'll be ready to roll on the ARPA fund application as well. So sharpen your pencils, and we look forward to seeing proposals Friday on the website. There'll be more details.
See, Bill's already paying dividends.
Yes, he is.
Anyone else? You got something?
No, not yet. I'm about to, though. Go ahead. That's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Boom. Thank you.